Hello and welcome to our series where we meet with different benefit providers and talk about everything employee benefits. Today we are joined by Frankie from Penfold. Thank you very much for joining us.
Great to be here.
And welcome to this series with Happl. So let's just begin by sharing a little bit about ourselves. So Frankie, tell us a bit about yourself, a bit about Penfold, and then I'll share with you for myself.
Yeah, I work in the marketing team at Penfold. Penfold are a workplace pension provider. We're about 6 years old and we're trying to help people understand the value of saving for retirement.
Amazing, perfect. And then obviously from Happl, as I know we've been working together for a little while now, obviously Happl is leading the way in terms of delivering a global employee benefits platform and proposition, making personalised benefits easy for employees to understand, but also removing a huge amount of admin and helping in automation for organisations as well. So thank you obviously again for joining us today. Let's begin by understanding what is pensions and what is it that Penfold are doing in that space.
Yeah, I mean, pensions, they're really a way to save for retirement. So hopefully people don't necessarily want to work forever, but if you stop working, how are you going to pay for that sort of retirement? So where is your income going to be coming from? And really you need to start thinking about that soon if you're not already thinking about it, because otherwise you're going to be reliant on any state pensions or social security. And normally those aren't enough to have actually a comfortable retirement.
That makes perfect sense. And obviously when we say pensions, in a UK context, that kind of makes sense. Actually, retirement, as you mentioned there, retirement saving plans is probably what a lot of people around the world will understand it as well. So thanks for kind of giving that bit of a background explanation. So when we you mentioned there around saving for retirement early. Now, what does that actually mean? Because we think about pensions or retirement as something that happens at the latter stages of our lives.
Yes.
Why should we be even thinking about this? And at what age do you think about it?
Well, lots of people already aren't thinking about it, and quite often the question comes up, when should I start saving? And well, the answer is maybe 10 years ago, but the next best time is today, basically. So if you're not already thinking about it, really try and think about it as soon as possible. And really the benefits about thinking about it as soon as possible is you'll benefit from certain things like compound growth. So as a very basic example, let's say you pay £10 into your pension or your retirement savings accounts. Say that grows 10% in the first year, next year you've got £11. If it grows again by 10% the next year, you're earning that sort of growth on the £11. So just over time, you have this compounding effect. Einstein coined it as the eighth wonder of the world, compounding. So it's something that's really powerful and understood that the sooner you start, the more growth you get. So that's one of the really key things. The other thing is quite often around the world, there are certain sort of tax efficiencies for saving into a pension as well. So in the UK, if you make personal contributions, that is subject to a government tax top-up, so you'll get some free money. And if you're paying into a workplace pension, that can all be taken before income tax or national insurance contributions. So it's a way you could actually even lower your tax burden.
Okay, makes perfect sense. Now, when we talk about kind of saving for retirement, and you mentioned there, that compound interest and how important that is, and starting younger, how much should we be contributing? Because obviously lots of governments around the world have mandated now for employees and employers to contribute to pension funds, partly because they are concerned, if I'm honest, around their own citizens, around what the state provision can be and what they can kind of afford. So talk me through a little bit of that and what you're seeing from Penfold's point of view.
Yeah, it's interesting. So, I mean, in the UK alone, there's auto-enrolment legislation. So that is a minimum of 8%, and that's normally paid 3% by the employer and 5% by the employee. And that really is a complete minimum. And really, it's not enough to have a comfortable retirement. It's enough to cover the basics, but not much else. So if you're looking forward to potentially going on holiday or having luxuries, it just simply won't be enough. One of the general sort of principles is somewhere around like a 12 to 15% sort of saving amount of your income. And yes, so when you compare 12 to 15% versus that auto-enrolment minimum of 8%, you can just see how there's going to be a big discrepancy.
That makes perfect sense. And obviously we're talking about the UK there kind of specifically, and it makes perfect sense. Obviously Penfold, you're based out of the UK and supporting kind of UK workforce. If we think about it in kind of broader kind of terms in other kind of countries, do we see other countries mandating kind of contributions from employer and employee? And are we saving enough in other countries, or is the UK lagging behind? Or actually, are we all facing the same kind of challenges?
I think the whole world is facing the same type of challenges, and part of this is demographics as well. So, I mean, going back to state pension or social security, that's paid by people that are currently working. So if you have an aging population, there are less people currently working that are paying into those sort of social security accounts. And then there's a bigger amount of people that are then taking away from it. So that's another reason why it's really important to be saving yourself privately or through your employer. What's interesting in the UK is because of auto-enrollment, about 80% of people are actually saving into a pension, which is fantastic. But really, they're mostly saving at that minimum level, which isn't really enough. Another good example is in the US. So in the US, you have a 401k savings account. Participation is a bit low in the US. Most rates say it's about 50% of the sort of valid workforce are actually paying into a 401k. So only half of workers. And then again, not normally saving enough as well. So it's a worldwide problem. And it's something that companies like Penfold need to tackle and actually help people understand the value of saving.
Makes perfect sense. Thank you. So that's really helpful to understand that kind of context. And, you know, sadly, we do obviously see that challenges as well through our kind of population, through the clients that we look after around the world. You know, it is a challenge in getting kind of employees and employers contributing to future kind of retirement and saving needs. So when we kind of look at our demographics and the workforce demographics, we talk about Gen Z or Gen Z, depending on which way you want to pronounce it. Like, what do you see from as Penfold in terms of that generation contributing to retirement savings plans?
Yeah, it's an interesting one. It's definitely a challenge because the younger you are, the lot further away from retirement that you are. And really what we find is that you need to, at least as a pension provider or as an employer, talk about the benefits of saving into a pension right now, because there are immediate benefits that you might have as much as you have benefits in, you know, 50 or 60 years time. So that those are things like the tax relief. It's thinking about lowering your tax burden as well. And a lot of that is just purely about education. And it shouldn't solely be up to the employer. I mean, you should also be able to rely on the provider that you're working with to support you with that.
Makes perfect sense. And then, so as Penfold, how are you supporting your kind of clients, so employers, with that Gen Z population to help educate them around the need for saving for retirement?
Yeah, it's a good question. Really what we try and do is bring it to life as much as possible. And that's both with the way that we communicate and how we communicate. So obviously online, you could find out all this information yourself online if you wanted, but it's very dense and it's quite complex. So whenever we work with an employer, we'll do things like a welcome session with them, with the whole sort of number of the employees that they've got. And that will cover, you know, some of the things that we want to just raise in terms of the educational piece, but there's a lot of question and answer sort of sessions. So those tend to run on for like half an hour or longer because people want to know about it, but it is a complex topic. So we make sure that we're there to talk to people directly rather than just sort of relying on documentation. And then it's just around different ways you can communicate. So Penfold has a pension app. That's sort of one of the great unique selling points of Penfold. And we've designed the app to make it as engaging as possible and understandable as possible about why you should be saving into your pension and what it actually means as well. Because, I mean, lots of pension providers will have an app and it might show your current account value, kind of like a bank account. But what does that mean in 40 years' time? Like having some forecasting in there, trying to help people understand how it sort of ladders up to what your retirement income will be. So we put a lot of emphasis into making it easy to understand and usable.
Makes perfect sense. And the same as Happl, as part of our mission is, you know, to make it easy for employees to understand their benefits, because there's such an array of options for employees and what they can pick and choose and personalize to their own kind of needs. But I agree with you, there needs to be a bit of education as well, and allowing employees to understand a bit more of what's available to them, but actually the impact of participating or not participating and what might that mean for them in the future as well. So no, great to kind of hear what you're doing there. So let's kind of maybe try and take away some of those kind of words that keep talked around of, you know, what's the difference between a pension and what's the difference between a retirement and savings plan. In theory, in my head, they almost mean the same thing, but I'm not sure they really do. So it'd be great just to kind of get your take on what those kind of words mean.
Yeah, I mean, really the pension or the 401k, that is your savings account. And I suppose a retirement saving plan might be thinking more sort of long term in terms of how much you might want to save now and how that might differ in the future. But fundamentally, it's the same thing. It's about saving for your retirement.
That makes sense. And then when we look at the benefits that employers kind of offer, pension seems to be the most expensive thing that an
Yes.
employer contributes to.
Yes.
Like, is that true? Is that a myth? Like, what's the kind of take on that from your point of view?
Yeah, I mean, if you take salary out of the equation, which is always going to be the number one thing, then pensions do tend to be the next most expensive thing. And that's in comparison to things like health insurance and all those other types of things that you might do to support your employees. But pensions, as they are normally a percentage of a salary, that amount just continues to increase with things like inflation. If your headcount rises, anything that's going to increase your payroll will increase how much you're sort of contributing as an employer into your employees' pension as well. And that's really why it becomes quite an expensive part of the benefits strategy.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then, yeah, at Happl, like we do see pensions probably being the most expensive benefits that an employer is contributing to. And actually, that's why we have total reward statements built into our platform that an employee can see the true value of what their employer is providing for them. A lot of employees will know and feel other benefits like a cycle to work benefit because they have a bike, or they'll have an electric vehicle scheme, so therefore they have a car on their driveway or as part of their kind of daily access and use. Those are tangible things, and as pensions or retirement saving plans, we don't really necessarily feel that tangible kind of impact to us as an individual, but therefore actually really kind of showing the true value of what's been offered to you by an employer through things like total reward statements really helps to kind of get that message across to employees as well. So yeah, I completely understand that from your point of view too. So when we talk to employers, and I'm sure you talk to an awful lot of employers as well as Penfold, and you're kind of talking through kind of different strategies for their benefits, and obviously here, particularly from a retirement kind of savings plan and pension kind of side of things, what are the kind of questions that come up for employers around that, and how are you kind of discussing that with them today?
Yeah, a lot of the questions are basically, why should I even care about pensions? We have a pension already. So one of the things in the UK at least is you're required to have an auto-enrolment scheme as part of employing people, which is fantastic because that's a great baseline to have. But because it is just that compliance, almost legislatory sort of baseline, it means on an ongoing basis, it's not normally something that employers are reviewing. So really one of the first things we talk to about with employees is why it's actually worth thinking about your pension and how it can contribute to your talent attraction and retention strategy, as well as some of the benefits in terms of engaging your employees and how it can actually even ease some of the admin burden that you might have as an employer.
That makes perfect sense. And actually leading on from that, it is part of that wider employee value proposition, isn't it? So whether it is a part of retention of employees or whether it's part of attracting to employees, actually pensions can be a big part of that value piece. What are the stats that you kind of see in terms of, you know, impacting of employee retention and attrition as well?
Yeah, it's interesting. We did a survey of about 500 employers and 2,000 employees, really solely around benefits and including pensions as well. One of the interesting stats that came out of that was only about half of employers think about pensions as the most important benefit. And the interesting contrast to that is 90% of employees value it when it comes to staying in a job, and 89% of employees value it when they're looking for a new job. So you can see the vast majority of employees actually think about their pension, and there's a bit of a mismatch there between what the employees think and what an employer believes is the most beneficial thing.
That makes perfect sense. So gone are the days where, you know, duvet days and other kind of things and those gimmicky kind of benefits are the attraction for attracting or keeping staff. Actually, it does come down to benefits that are looking after employees for the long term.
Absolutely.
Great. So when we talk about pensions and kind of raising awareness and improving engagement for clients kind of today, what are the sort of things that you do at Penfold to help employers with that?
Yeah, so employers, we run welcome sessions for employees. So as soon as you move over to Penfold, there'll be a sort of webinar session, or it can be in person as well, where we'll talk employees through the scheme and how it all works, and also just answer a lot of sort of questions that might come up, because normally people haven't thought so much about pensions up to that point, and there are a lot of questions that come out of it, which is fantastic because it means people do want to know more about their pension, why they should be saving towards their future. But we do lots of other things as well. I mean, as a sort of tech startup pension provider, we've built our pension app to be really engaging, and that's both for the employee as much as the employer as well. One of the interesting things with pensions is you as an employer, you'll be paying into your pension as well, so it benefits you to understand how it all works. So we make it as simple to understand as possible within the app. And just a few other things that we'll do for employers. If your team have any questions about pensions, which are very complicated pensions, just pass them straight through to us. We'll answer them all. Our customer support team have been like really highly rated. I mean, you can see it on Trustpilot independently, but they're consistently rated amongst the best in the industry. So the support we give is a really big part of our service as well.
That's great. And that's one of the reasons why we love working with Penfold and organisations similar to yours as well, not just to completely call you guys out, but for us, it is about driving that engagement and that speed and that ease for employees who have to access information and understand those different benefits and options, which is exactly why Happl, similar to yourselves, as a kind of tech-enabled proposition and solution, really drives kind of engagement. So again, through our platform, when we have 24/7 help chat functionality, as well as our AI engine for really helping employees to understand those elements, the different benefits and those options, that really does improve that engagement for employees, and we see that as well across our platform. And it's always great to know that we can obviously pass those employees to you for those bit more complex and detailed kind of questions.
Happy to help. Yeah.
Yeah. So Frankie, obviously with the budget coming up from the UK side of things, and obviously the finances of the country is a pretty hot topic, and where kind of different revenue might be coming from government's kind of needs. Pensions always comes up as part of that kind of conversations, whether it's the promise to existing kind of pension population from a government kind of state pension provision, as well as where these kind of additional tax revenues might be coming from for the government. What's your kind of take on that? What do you think might happen, or what do you fear might happen, and what might be the things that employers need to think about?
Well, what we do know is going to happen is the state pension age is rising a couple of times over the next sort of 20 to 30 years. So it's going to raise initially from 67 to 68 in the sort of next 10 years, and then further off in the future up to 69. Now, as much as we know that that's going to happen, the timeline of that could still change, and it'll be moving it forwards. So it's very likely that those bounds will come down even further, which just makes it even more important to save privately towards a pension as well. And there's a lot of things potentially that could happen in an autumn budget or in future budgets as well. So there could be some impacts to something called salary sacrifice. So at the moment, you can pay into your pension pre-tax basically, and that lowers your tax burden. There's talk that might get taken away or reduced in some certain way. So that's something we're aware of. And then just the other big tax benefit of pensions is for personal top-ups, you will get basically your income tax back. So if you're a basic rate taxpayer at the moment, you would have a 25% top-up. Higher rates would get their sort of 40% top-up. That's always open to whether or not the government may or may not want to reduce that or take that away. It is a big impact on like the government sort of budget, but also we think it's really, really important to help people, to encourage them to save more. So be very, very strongly against that happening, but we'll have to wait and see what happens.
So yeah, some things we do know that's coming, and like you say, may be accelerated in their timescales in terms of that state pension age kind of potentially being brought forward and the impacting more people quicker. But yeah, some things that are obviously unknown, but hopefully we'll find out soon what those might be.
Yep.
So when we talk about obviously saving for retirement, a lot of the times it's kind of badged under that financial well-being. That well-being is obviously a really important topic for employees, both when you talk about mental or physical health, but actually financial well-being is also equally as important, and not just in the sense of the day-to-day spend that employees have today, but potentially saving for that kind of retirement. What are some of the things that you're seeing that's important for employers to focus on, but also for employees to understand around why saving for retirement is an important part of that financial well-being?
Yeah, you're completely right about financial well-being being just as important as some of those other things. And it's interesting referring back to that survey that we ran again, where again, only 50% of employers actually prioritise pensions as part of their well-being strategy. And again, 90% of employees making it an important part of their decision whether or not they want to stay in a job. So for us, again, it's all about education. That's for employers as well. We'll always reference some of those statistics that are completely sort of part of an employee, whether or not they want to stay in a company or join a new company. But then it's also about the education about why it's important for you as an employer to sort of help your employees for the future. Again, we've spoken about the importance of saving towards a comfortable retirement, and really you as an employer are a big part of that, like how much you're contributing, and then how much you're helping your employees understand how much they should contribute as well. And really that's what we want to do at Penfold for as many sort of people around the UK as possible, just help them understand the importance of saving towards their retirement.
No, that makes perfect sense. And actually, when we think about financial well-being, and obviously we talk about well-being as a, well, what's a stress or a strain onto that kind of well-being, actually, ultimately that retirement kind of savings pot is a potential strain if people don't know that it's there and not taking actions. So it's about not burying your head in the sand and actually going, right, I do need to understand that I need to save. And maybe, you know what, today I can't quite afford it, but you know what, it's going to be a priority for me next year or in 6 months' time. And at least having that lens on it and not kind of burying your head in the sand and thinking, don't worry, I'll leave it for another time, and actually you don't.
That's absolutely it. I mean, the other thing that we come across quite often is confusion. So for the people that are aware of their finances, a lot of them are then confused. How much should I save? Am I saving enough at the moment? What is my current pot worth? And again, that's where Penfold really helps with some of the things that we've got within our pension saving app. So again, we'll help people understand, what they're projected for their retirement income now, and not just the financial amount. We'll put you into like a lifestyle category. So whether or not it's a basic sort of lifestyle, a sort of middle of the road one, or a luxury one. So those are things like how many holidays you might be able to afford, the type of grocery shop that you might be able to afford as well. So I think it's really important for pension providers as well to actually help people understand how much they're saving and then what it's going to sort of mean when it comes to retirement.
That makes perfect sense. Frankie, that's really helpful. Thanks so much for obviously answering our questions and having that chat today. Now, we've had some great questions that have been shared with Happl as part of our kind of community, and we wanted to bring them to you here as well, Frankie, and with Penfold and all your experience as well. So let me just read off here. So the first question was from Mark. So how do UK retirement benefits compare to, say, the US or EU approaches? And are we behind or are we ahead?
Yeah, again, it's a little bit of a global problem. So in a lot of ways, every country is experiencing similar issues. In the UK, what's great is because of auto-enrolment legislation, about 80% of people are paying into a pension, which is fantastic. But really, the saving rate isn't sort of enough for that sort of comfortable retirement that I'm sure we would all love. How that contrasts with the US, about 50% of people are saving into some type of retirement account, whether it's a 401k or something else. But again, it's a very similar issue in terms of not necessarily saving enough for that comfortable retirement. So again, very similar issue all around the world.
Thanks, Frankie. That's really helpful context, and I know we talked about it a bit earlier on as well, but nice to kind of hear that question from Mark and to kind of go through it in a bit more detail. Next question is from Penny. We find younger staff don't really care about pensions. How do you make them value this benefit more? And I know we've talked about that a little bit more, but it'd be great to maybe just answer Penny's question there.
Absolutely. I think one of the top things is making the value of pensions immediate, and there are immediate benefits, whether it's the sort of free tax relief that you get from the government, so top up on any personal contributions. There's also sort of the tax benefits when it comes to things like salary sacrifice. You might be able to reduce your national insurance contributions. So those are immediate things that you'll either see a big increase in your sort of pension amounts just from that top up, or you might even see a decrease in your tax burden. So you might have more take-home pay after that. So making it immediate is really important as well, but then also the education side super important. So just really helping people understand the value of saving now, how that really compounds over time into sort of a bigger amount when it comes to retirement. So not just about how much you've got currently in your pot, but how much that means in whether it's in 20 years time, whether it's in 40 or 50 years time.
That makes perfect sense. And equally at Happl, we've been making our platform easier for employees to manage their pension contributions, obviously with our auto-enrollment module for employers to make their life a little bit easier and compliant as well. But actually just the sheer ability to month by month make that change, saying actually I want to increase my pension contributions by a couple of percent or X amount, just giving that control to employees can just make such a big difference in being able to look after themselves for the future as well. Another question here for you. This one's from Karen. So she says here, realistically, when we ask our people what benefits they value, pensions rarely come up. They usually prefer more immediate things like wellbeing budgets, healthcare, or even just cash. If we increase our pension contribution, we'd have to cut back elsewhere, and we're worried we won't get the employee engagement or gratitude in return. At the same time, we feel responsibility not to let them reach retirement underfunded. How should we think about balancing that trade-off? Quite a long question there, but I think something I think lots of people can resonate with of what is that trade-off and what is that balance. So yeah, great to get your take on that.
Yeah, there's a few things to think about. So number one, hopefully you are talking to your team and understanding what they want. So again, going back to our survey where we found out 90% of employees actually care about their pension above other benefits. So you're likely to see something in line with that. So that will just underline the importance of the pension as part of your benefits package. Then I would say you want to sort of potentially balance your benefits package around things that might be immediate versus things that are longer term, like a pension. So don't necessarily put all of your budget into immediate things, balance that out a little bit. And really what I'd then say is a good thing that you might want to do as an employer is test some different things with your pension contributions. So you might want to test employer matching up to a slightly higher percentage. So you might want to test pension contribution matching up to say 6%. Run that for maybe 6 months or a year or so, see what feedback you get from your employees, potentially look at if that impacts your retention and your churn rate for your workforce as well. And that can be a great way to measure the ROI of the pension as well.
No, it makes great sense. As well, one of the things that we've also done at Happl, and for a lot of our clients, they've moved away from this concept of I only provide these 5 or 6 benefits and they're funded or not in terms of what's there, to more using things like a benefits allowance for their employees and for their workforce, which allows employees a bit more flexibility and choice. But that means then they can also choose to say, actually, you know what, I'd like to have that balance contributed to my pension fund rather than necessarily contributing towards another dental insurance plan or extra other kind of life cover. Not that they're not important, but it helps employees to have that option to prioritise what's relevant for them as well.
Sounds fantastic.
And so when we look at, one of the questions we often get from different kind of clients and organisations, and particularly when you're in enterprise kind of level size organisations, you've got thousands of employees and therefore your wage bill is going to be quite high, but obviously therefore your pensions bill, retirement saving plan bill is going to be quite high as well. Like ROI, return on investment, is often a conversation, a question that kind of comes up. How do you help organisations to really understand what the true return on investment is for investing in those retirement saving plans for their employees for the long term?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the way we like to frame it quite often is how a pension could be a retention product or part of your retention strategy. So one common stat that comes out quite often is an employee leaving a business normally costs something like £30,000 between recruitment and onboarding and all those types of things. So really, if you can reduce the sort of churn in your workforce, that's a great way that you can save money as a business. So again, thinking back to how 90% of employees consider a pension when they're considering whether or not to stay in a job, you can immediately see how that could be quite cost efficient and a way to save money. Other things that we suggest as a pension provider is do some benchmarking. If you're going to switch pension providers or actually take a more active role in how your employees are saving into their pension, do some things like understand what your retention is pre and post any of those changes. Do things like employee pulse surveys, NPS scores internally, things like that, and really understand, ask those questions around how a pension is actually contributing to an employee's sort of whether or not they might want to stay in a job or not.
Yeah, I think it's really important to think of it in that way as well. And certainly when we work with clients and do lots of things around the world with our clients around kind of those strategies for, we talk about it as a benefit strategy for what they want to offer to their employees or employee value proposition. Actually thinking about kind of retirement savings plan is actually a really fundamental part of that kind of process. Yes, salary and benchmarking in terms of what are my kind of peers paying is an important lever to understand, but actually there's a lot more value in talking around all the additional benefits and all those kind of the costs and the value to the employee as a result of that. And actually therefore being able to really openly talk about it to employees can really take away some of those and mitigate some of those risk factors of people leaving, but also help with retention as well.
The other great thing on the cost side of things is for businesses in the UK, there's something called salary sacrifice. So quite often that's well known when it comes to cycle to work schemes or company cars. You can actually use pension contributions as a way to contribute with salary sacrifice. And for an employer, that actually reduces the taxable income, which will then in turn reduce national insurance contributions. So as a pure sort of cost saving measure, if you aren't already doing salary sacrifice contributions as an employer, that's just a great way to immediately sort of save some money in terms of your tax contributions.
Definitely a good important thing to talk about. Thanks, really appreciate that. So thank you for joining us today. It's been great to share with you a little bit more around pensions and retirement saving plans, both here in the UK and obviously some of the requirements around the world as well. And thank you for obviously Frankie joining us here from Penfold and sharing a little more around some of the insights and stats around what they're seeing across their client base and some of the important needs that we have as an organisations to provide retirement saving plans for our employees, and how to really maximise those, both in terms of return on investment for an organisation, but obviously as part of that employee value proposition as well. So thank you again, Frankie. Really great to meet you.
Thanks for having me. Great to speak.
Great, thank you so much. And as we said, obviously there's lots of different things that we've talked around today. Plenty of more information is available as well. Working with Penfold is great here at Happl, available through the Happl platform for you and your employees. But obviously it's part of a wider picture of understanding your employee value proposition and the need for investing into retirement savings plans. So if you've got any further questions, or if you want to talk to anybody at the Happl team or also the Penfold team, do please reach out to us.